said?
Time out. I wasn't superficial and fluffy last week, to be clear. You just took it that way. But to answer your question,
Okay.
nothing about today is superficial and fluffy.
Welcome to the Far More Podcast. Hey, Liz.
Hey, Jason.
Hey, Liz, you know what?
You love me so much.
Yes. And what I'm finding fascinating about doing this podcast.
Ooh, fascinating.
Well, you know, I've been skeptical of this whole thing, but
Well, hang on. What are you skeptical of? Which part? I hate to cut off your thought, but
being vulnerable, saying something stupid, just having things public,
out there,
right? All the above.
Okay.
Everything that comes along with doing a podcast.
Sure. Everything that comes along with putting yourself out there.
Yeah. Being vulnerable publicly. Yes. All those things, lots of sweats.
You were skeptical about it.
Still there, probably.
Oh, so it's ongoing. Okay.
Yeah, but you know what I am enjoying?
Me.
Yes.
And
I enjoy it when I say something that sparks something in somebody else. Meaning either I say something just flat out wrong or frustrates them and they want to have a conversation about it. So I love the fact that I'll be in a group setting at church or work or somewhere and someone's like, hey, okay, hang on. I got a bone to pick with you on this thing.
And you're like, oh no, what stupid thing did I say now?
That's by default. It's like, what dumb thing did I say? But it actually has led to some really good conversations. So I am grateful for that.
Well, good.
Yeah.
Gratitude.
And you know what? Last week we talked a lot about gratitude. I was a little grumpy last week.
Well,
admittedly.
Well, but most listeners didn't hear that. Well, actually, none of the listeners heard that because I cut. Y'all, I have to tell you, I do want to let those out there know that have listened to the episode on why is gratitude so hard. And if you haven't listened to it, go do that. Y'all didn't hear an hour. There was an hour out of the middle of that episode that I actually cut out. And I think we should revisit it at some point. Mm-hmm. Now is not the time, but there was a lot. And so I don't think your grumpiness actually really came through because I cut all that out.
Well, I probably still did, but I think I was coming from a place of trying to figure out gratitude as like a feeling, right? Which is just naturally hard for me to think of anything from a feeling perspective, because my default is
feelings don't matter or they're fleeting.
Feelings are optional. Mm-hmm. Motivation is optional. Mm-hmm. Those things are optional, right? Yeah. Doing the right thing, the obedience, the discipline is not optional. And so I think that's where I was coming from. I was trying to unpack gratitude as a feeling when the reality is, like everything else, it's doing things out of obedience and gratitude for God. Mm-hmm. And through that, heart change comes. And that's the summary of it. But yeah, I was wrestling with that and a little grumpy trying to place gratitude in the feeling category.
I don't even know if grumpy is the right word.
It's a polite word to say.
I think you were a little frustrated, but
yeah. Well, I mean, that's what we talk about. We talk about wrestling with faith, wrestling with God. I mean, it's frustration not from a angry place. It's I call it healthy frustration. It's a healthy tension.
I didn't
right?
say it was bad, but I think that you also got a little frustrated with me indirectly because you felt like it was taking a very on the surface, superficial turn. Let me finish though, because I can see that you were about to say something. And that was not my intent at all. However, I'm going to make up for that today.
Oh.
With this episode.
What does it mean? You're not going to be superficial and fluffy? It's going to be...
Okay.
Is that what you said?
Time out. I wasn't superficial and fluffy last week, to be clear. You just took it that way. But to answer your question,
okay,
nothing about today is superficial and fluffy or fluffy.
Okay. You have a very serious face and tone all of a
sudden. I do have a very serious face. So to give a little bit of context to those who are listening or watching, hey, we're so glad you're here. This morning, while I was working out, I was listening to a podcast, and the host of this podcast was talking about Israel. And I'm assuming that most people who are listening know what's going on there. And she just told a I'm not going to tell the story, but it was a very graphic story about something that happened to a child who is the same age as one of our daughters. And for those of you who don't know me, Liz, I am a very empathic person. Not only do I feel my feelings very deeply, I feel the feelings of others very deeply. It used to I'll just be honest. It used to be debilitating. I responded in that way. I responded to feeling my feelings really hard by succumbing to them. And I would just hole up in my room and I would hide from the world. That is what I would typically do. And this morning, it's what I wanted to do again. I didn't even tell you this. I came home and I put on the smile, right? I turned it on. I turned on the smile. And I think I felt conviction because you had sent me a TikTok. I'm just going to reference it a little bit. I'm going to put a link to it in the show notes because I think it's important to watch. I'm going to try and explain it as fast as I can. You jump in if you feel like you can explain it better. But there are two men, I would say they're in their 60s or 70s, and they are at what I think is a football game, what we in America here call soccer. And one man just looks very somber and very serious and almost like sad and depressed. And the other man is just cheering loudly. And I mean, the whole crowd around them, they're just exuberantly cheering because I guess they're having a good game. And it shows the different games throughout the season. And every single time it's got that same man who looks sad and pensive and depressed. And it has the other man who is just jumping and cheering and always smiling and always seemingly happy. And then at the very end, the man who was happy and cheerful and exuberant and couldn't stop smiling the whole time, his chair is empty. And his friend, who the whole time you're watching this video, you think, well, surely this video is going to be about him. He puts the guy's scarf on the chair. Ooh. And I felt that, but I felt it because I'm the cheerful guy. Well, and the whole point was, well, no, say whatever you were going to say.
Yeah. And it was really I'll call it a public service announcement type spot for just mental health in general.
Right.
And just pointing out that on the surface, you just never know what's really going on.
Right.
And so whether it's you're battling your own mental health challenges, or someone like you who's just an empath and almost takes on other people's own challenges and brings them into your world
so deeply,
it was just kind of bringing awareness to that and you just never know what's going on kind of spot. And so it was the jarring aspect of that at the end.
Right. So this morning I was sort of, as I was coming home, and I've got such deep feelings because y'all, I was empathing really hard. It's not a word, but it is now. I was empathing really hard. And it's a Sunday. We record on Sundays. We serve at church on Sundays. And I knew that I had to go and I had to smile and welcome everyone, which I can still genuinely do. I can still genuinely be happy that people are here. But I also knew that I'm feeling my feelings real hard this morning. And I had such a lighter episode planned. And then I told you, well, that's out the window. Time to because here's the thing. Here's what this whole episode is about. We should not suffer in silence. It is okay to not be okay, but it's what we do next that matters the most. And I have to fight. I want to fight against my natural inclination to say, Jason, I just can't record today. Jason, I just can't today, and go get in the bedroom and take a nap and escape my feelings. I refuse to do that. I refuse to continue in down that path, because I truly, in my heart of hearts, do not believe that that is what I, as a follower of Jesus, am called to do. I think it's okay to feel your feelings. I think it's okay to not be okay. I think it's okay to go and be quiet for a little bit, but not to stay there.
Well, it's you said not to stay there. You said not to suffer in silence, which all that means is not doing it alone.
Right.
Right. And then we've referenced this before. I've been using this phrase about taking your tension and making your testimony. That's what you're doing here. You felt this tension. You have these feelings you were feeling. How do you take that tension of what's going on in your life and what you're trying to unpack? And how do you bring a voice to that, right? How do you make that your testimony? And I think that's what you're trying to do in this moment is like, listen, I had this tension, this thing happened. Let's talk about it.
Right.
Because you're not alone in that. I mean, it's what's interesting is the same time you're kind of experiencing that this morning, I was just diving deep into research about men's mental health and just survey data and challenges there, and how it's real bad when you look at the men's data, because we are so good at just stuffing things deep. And if you look at the actual data of what it's going to take for a man to actually bring some things to the surface of what they're struggling with, and I don't mean going to therapy. I mean talking to a friend, a spouse, talking to anybody.
Like even their closest person.
Anybody. What it takes to do that. I mean, there's still 4 out of 10 will never do that. We'll never do that. They're going to suffer alone.
Yeah.
And so the next question in the survey is like, well, what would it take for you to bring this to somebody? Well, you got to be on the edge of suicide is what the survey said, to even bring that to the surface. And the pain in that and the lack of freedom in that was weighing on me this morning. And the same time you were experiencing this thing, and we didn't even know about it until I saw your face at church. I was like, are you okay? And you were like, no. And I was like, oh no, what happened?
I'm not okay. Well, because that's the thing. And I told you this off mic before we sat down here. I feel safe with you number one, because you're my husband. I really hope and pray that all spouses feel safe enough. And I know they don't, but I wish that for every spouse to feel safe enough to come to their person and be like, hey, I'm not okay. However, because of my personality and how I typically present myself, and how I typically am. I'm typically bubbly and happy. And what I told you is that I often suffer in silence because I feel like other people need me to be the cheerleader, the encourager, the one who's always smiling, the one who is taking on their burdens. I don't want to put my burdens on them, which is kind of interesting, knowing who I am as a person, like, because we've talked about how I easily rely on others, right? Like I'm like, okay, yes, you want to help me? You want to do this thing for me? Okay, I'm fine with that. Yeah. But when it comes to this, when it comes to feelings, and I don't know, all of a sudden I become the one who's like, no, I have to take all this on. I have to be the happy face, the cheerleader for everyone else. I'm not going to burden you with this.
Can I ask you the deeper question on that?
Oh, no. I mean, yes, but
on the surface, you're like, I need to be this person for these other people.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any part of it where it's like, no, I need them to view me as that? And it's more of a deeper thing where you need that kind of weird affirmation of, I need them to need me.
To need me? It could be. It could be. I mean, who doesn't want to feel needed? But I don't know where it's rooted, because I'm sure it goes back a long way, because as far back as I can remember, I've typically been the one to make people laugh. You know, I've always done whatever I can to get somebody to laugh. I've always found grumpy people a wonderful challenge. I will break you of your grumpiness. I will get a laugh out of you. You know, so I don't know what that's rooted in. That's an interesting question. Because I'm sure people don't need me to be the happy face all the time, but in my mind they do.
Right. And that's sometimes we should ask ourselves, is it really about them, or is it about me?
Or is it a little bit of both?
That's right.
You know, but I think I just wanted to get all of this out because I don't want to suffer in silence. And I don't want to use the word, I'm not suffering. That's really strong. But I'm feeling my feelings really big. And I could easily go to a place of suffering, like deep suffering, if I allowed myself.
Well, I think just how we talk a lot how you're more emotional and more analytical, it's your version of processing, right? Or me, I would analytically process and analyze. That's you churning your feelings and emotions, and it comes through as like paralyzing empath, where I'm more like analysis by paralysis. You're like
feeling by
empathing to paralysis.
Well, yeah, because I've told there are some days where this is going to sound so ridiculous. Sometimes I don't even want to say it out loud. Sometimes it's hard to even get stuff done in a day because I am feeling my feelings so hard. And I know you might want to roll your eyes at that.
I struggle with that.
I know that like on the inside, you're probably like, but I do feel feelings so hard. And when other people are suffering, and it doesn't even have to be somebody I know. Like I said, this is a story of a girl who's in Israel, but it was just so heartbreaking. And I was like, well, I'm not getting anything done today.
But the reality is there's hundreds of thousands of stories like that happening right now in real time. Right?
And that's why I can't keep up with what's going on every day.
Yeah. Regardless of if you want to call sides or whatever, it's heartbreaking stories across the board.
Yes.
Heartbreaking stories here in America every single day. Heartbreaking stories inside of houses in suburban neighborhoods every single day. So how do you not just, what do you do with that? How do you not just get overwhelmed by that? Instead, how do you redeem that?
Okay, well, number one, I do get overwhelmed by it. So let's just put that out there right now. Like it's not always redeemed, but that's on me. It's not on anybody else but me, because unfortunately, I would often allow myself to go to spiral. Mm-hmm. I'm like, okay, well, I'm giving in to this downward spiral. Yeah. Let's go on this ride. And historically, I would either numb the pain with food as a comfort, or would distract myself from the pain with TV. Really TV.
Just binge watching something.
Just binge watching, just hole up in the room and binge watch. But you were talking earlier about doing the hard work, right? And we've also talked about before how I try to avoid having to do the hard work. But when it comes to stuff like this is where I have to put in the hard work, because the alternative is destruction. But we have to look to Jesus, because he is the author and perfecter of our faith. His word tells us that. And I also have to share it. That's the biggest thing. That is the biggest thing. God's word says, rejoice with those who rejoice, but also weep. Some versions say mourn with those who mourn. And if I'm supposed to weep with others who are weeping, that means I should let them weep with me. Mm-hmm. But sometimes that's just really hard, because I want everybody, baked into all of this, I want people to see me as the happy, bubbly Liz. Not the girl who feels her feelings so hard that she can barely even function sometimes. I don't want people to see that side of me, because that's weak. I don't want to show my weakness.
But I think it's okay to talk about that weakness. We talked about putting in the hard work. And the reason I was referencing putting in the hard work is, if I'm honest, a conversation around mental health, depression, anything in this category, I'd say 5 years ago, I would have written off. I'd been like, suck it up, buttercup. Feelings don't matter.
No, you're still kind of like that.
There's a lot of that there. But as I've been putting in the, quote, hard work in my own life, meaning unpacking what's going on inside me, meaning how do I actually grow my spiritual walk?
Yeah.
Like deep, asking myself questions 7 layers deep, which some of those we expose in this podcast, but some we don't.
Yeah.
I'm like, why do I think this way? That's what we mean by the hard work. But as I've been doing that, I've realized even in my own life, oh, wait, you're not mentally healthy in this area. You're not emotionally healthy in this area. Oh, in this season of your life, oh, son, you were in a real bad spot. So even as I've been putting in the hard work, I've realized that my suck it up buttercup mentality has just masked a lot of things where I haven't actually put in the work that needed to go.
That was like your form of escapism.
Yeah, you just outwork your feelings.
Right. And I'm like,
Right? Yeah.
Robot, like how in the world do you do that?
Right. You're like, go higher under the covers with your feelings. I'm like, no, I'm just going to outwork my feelings because if I'm tired and exhausted, I don't have any feelings anymore.
Well, because you can't think about it.
That's right. I mean, we're in the middle of a moment, right, where you're feeling feelings.
Yes.
You're
in real time.
In real time.
This is not like this happened earlier in this week. It's happening as we're talking.
It's not a manufactured conversation. This
Yeah.
is you're feeling feelings in this moment because you
Of
heard a
this
story, you absorbed it, you took on all the emotion and empathy of it. Mm-hmm. You just want to shut down because of it. You're fighting against shutting down. You're
Right.
like, I'm trying to lay it out there and talk about it and process it.
Well, you know where we go from here? I'm doing it. I'm here. I'm sitting in this chair. You know what? It's one little micro step at a time. Because again, in my mind this morning, and I'm not exaggerating or kidding when I say the thought of pretending like I was sick crossed my mind so that I would not have to function today. And like that's getting real vulnerable and transparent for me. But I want to be that for you as well as for our listeners to give them freedom to be honest about where they were. I thought, okay, I can't just say, Jason, I can't record today because I'm really feeling my feelings.
Well, what broke that thought pattern?
The Holy Spirit, girl. How many times have I talked about the Holy Spirit?
But no, be more specific. Did you pray through that? Did you ask God? Did you like
not
talk to practical Jason?
Not
right?
active. I did not actively in my mind go, Lord, please be with me. But I think I had a spirit of I want to break the cycle. I also and that's an actual sense of obligation kicked in, which is not like me. I don't have that. I don't know if Jason, I don't know if you know this about me.
I can attest to that.
But that whole sense of obligation thing, but you know, we've joked about how this podcast is actually a thing that people listen to, and even more, they're actually gleaning something from it. And I think partly that popped into my head too. I don't want to let you down. Number one, I don't want to let other people down. Like, this is my responsibility to do this, and I made a commitment, and I want to honor my commitment.
So how do you want to leverage this moment? If there's somebody out there that is like you.
Oh, there is. There are lots of people out there like me.
And we know it's not me, right? I'm very different. It's harder for me to comprehend and understand and even give advice through these things. Just being completely honest, right?
Yeah.
What would you say to them right now that's like, oh, I feel that. I am that person. They're listening to you right now and they're hiding under their covers.
Well, you know how a lot of times your answer to the question I ask you is, well, it depends on if they are a follower of Jesus or not. I mean, if you're not, I would say have a conversation with somebody about Jesus and try to get to know Jesus, because I believe that there is freedom only found in him, first and foremost. He is the only one that you are going to find freedom and rest and salvation from. That would be my first one. For people who do know Jesus, it's don't let Satan have the win. Don't numb the pain. feel the feelings. Like that's really hard for some people to feel the feelings. As soon as there's even a little feeling, they're like, oh shoot, give me the food, give me the alcohol, give me the drugs, give me something to help me go to sleep so that I can sleep this away. Cause I was there too. I literally just admitted that I would numb the pain with food. I would take a Benadryl so I could go to sleep. Yeah. So that I could shut that part of myself off. I was going to say my brain, but it's more, I don't know, my heart, like just shut that part off because I wasn't strong enough in my walk with Jesus at the time that we're on to something now. Y'all, this is happening in real time. My walk with the Lord was not strong enough that I naturally or supernaturally went to him. Yeah. My first step was, get rid of this. Get rid of this. We don't want to feel this. Warning, warning. This is too much. And so instead of taking it to the Lord, because Jesus tells us in his word, my yoke is easy. Like, take this. I will take on your burden for you. He literally tells us that. I will take it on for you. But I wasn't close enough to him in that time. And so maybe that's the difference now. Yeah. Maybe that's the difference today, is that back then I wasn't walking with the Lord like I should have been. But now that I am, he's whispering in my ear, give this to me. Cast all of your cares on me.
And I think the beauty of it is you can do that while still feeling the feelings. A lot of times we feel like, okay, I got to get over the feelings or
and
park
then
the feelings
it'll be gone.
Then do that.
Yeah.
You know, somebody said to me this week, they called me their fearless leader.
That happened to me too.
And I said, oh no, I'm full of fear. I just do it anyway.
I do it scared.
I do it anyway.
Yeah.
So you do it scared. You do it feeling the feelings.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, that's so funny because somebody said that to me too. And I was like, well, I think I bristled more at the word leader. I was like, I am nobody's leader except for maybe my children, but that's about it. But yeah, so I think for anyone, I'm going to look at y'all, for anyone out there who you can identify with me, you empath really hard, you feel your feelings, and you just want to run away from them and you just want to hide, don't do that, because it's also not setting a good example. I mean, we have to set an example for others, and if we show that it's okay to run away and hide, then it's going to show them that it's okay for them to run away and hide, and we don't want that for the people in our lives, and God doesn't want that for us. And so you take it to Jesus and you build your walk with him, but talk to somebody about it.
You know,
don't keep it bottled up.
And I think what you're sharing is so timely as we go into the holidays, right?
Yes, where loneliness abounds.
Well, loneliness by yourself or loneliness inside your crowded family in a house, right? Because there's just
both
so
can
many
happen. Yeah.
dynamics and wounds and brokenness that the holidays can be an amazing time of joy for a lot of people, but just a place of deep depression for others, right? And a lot of people are just trying to hide under the covers and get through to a new year.
Numb the pain.
Right.
Yep. So
close us out as you think about those people and going into the holidays and encourage them.
Well, I mean, I definitely think, you know, we feel like we're going to burden somebody or inconvenience them. But I think you would be surprised to know how many people would love to have another person at their Thanksgiving table. Don't give in to the loneliness. Don't allow it to just take over you. Reach out and ask somebody. And I know it's going to be awkward and uncomfortable, but we have to get over that. We have to get over feeling awkward and being uncomfortable. And we have to say, hey, can I come to your house for Thanksgiving? Do you know how overjoyed I would be if somebody came up to us and would be like, hey, can I come to your house for Thanksgiving? Yes.
Yes.
They wouldn't even be able to get the full question out. And other people want to be that for you. Let them. And it might be awkward at first, but I'm willing to bet that you would look back on it with such fondness. And it could be, you never know, it could be a game changer in your life. Don't you think?
Absolutely.
It definitely has the potential to be a game changer. You just have to be open to it. You have to be willing to, we got to get out of our own way. I think that's the biggest thing.
Yes, pride is
it comes before the fall.
It's a big barrier.
Yeah.
It's a big barrier to relationships, a big barrier to us doing the hard work on ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, well, thank you for being vulnerable today.
Thank you for letting me kind of spring this one on you. I know you love it when I do that.
Right. It's what our listeners don't know is I had no idea the topic. I literally looked down and saw the title you wrote down and was like, oh,
what does that title say?
We're going, it says it's okay to not be okay, but, and I was like, okay, we're leaning into something here and I don't know where it's going.
But I love you so much.
That's
and
right.
You listen, you improvise so well.
Uh-huh.
You do.
All right.
Hey, we are so glad that you are here. Please follow us on all the socials, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. We are at Far More Podcast. And if you need somebody to pray for you, like if you're struggling right now, or if you know we're heading into a season where you typically struggle, and you want us to pray for you, send me an email. Send us an email, farmorepodcast@gmail.com, and we would be so happy to pray for you and to just love on you. I love you. Thank you for obliging me.
Proud of you.
We'll see y'all next time.
See ya.